So what do you reckon? Do you think it should be crowdfunding or crowdfinancing? What do you reckon? There's a move of people talking more about crowdfinancing. Like you notice in America now, that trend's coming out where people, crowdfunding is sort of associated more with with the what? With donations and things like that. And financing is sort of serious.
Yeah,
exactly, because I think that means that maybe things are getting more serious in this sector as we go along. But yeah, I noticed Dara Albright, who works out of New York, who runs some fairly serious conferences, especially with America, where they've, with the Jobs Act, up until recently, it was still accredited investors that could fund, but they've just passed what's called Title IV, which is called Regulation A+, and that means that people can, that people from the public can begin to invest in America for the first time for a long time. It's hard to believe, really, isn't it, in all these years, that the only way they've been able to invest is through a prospectus, if they want to put... That's the beach where I come from, isn't it nice? Doesn't look good, does it? There we go. That's the things with PCs. We should put that on Mac.
I'll work it out for you.
Are you going to work it out? I'll just start talking anyway. But anyway, so I'm going to cover, you can see at the top there, reward, debt and equity. I'm sort of mixing it all up because they, you know, I'm talking generically about crowdfunding and what's happening with that. You know, if we go back 150 years, if people wanted to raise money, they used to congregate like that around the village square or wherever. They used to just be together and communicate because, you know, they didn't go thousands of miles to have conversations. And, you know, if you look at every state in Australia had its own stock exchange. In the United Kingdom, there were 22 of them. And the amazing thing about it was that they were predominantly for capital raising. They weren't there so people could trade shares. They were there for capital raising. And, but nowadays, as you can see, it's all about trading. And I don't know if you know this, but if you look at the statistics for most stock exchanges in most countries, 95% of the volume through the stock exchange is passing the parcel, people trading shares. And that doesn't put anything into new businesses. Only 5% of the money actually goes into a business through rights issues, through something like that. So you mean, when people say, well, how come we're not getting money into a lot of our businesses? It's because the trading mentality has completely taken over and people are in an investing part. But what happened after a while, that these trading platforms, it became a lot more efficient to centralize them all in the one place. And which means that when something gets centralized, they need to have regulations, they need to have intermediaries, they need to have all sorts of regulations. And it's the same with when you look at, say, the Chamber of Commerce. If somebody wanted to send something to deal with somebody in another state or another country or something like that, they went along to the Chamber of Commerce. Because, you know, you didn't have the connections, you didn't have internet and all those things in order to communicate like that. So what's happened really is that, what's come in there is that we've got up here the technical disruption of the internet coming into the capital raising process, making it more efficient to handle the transactions. And then on the other side, and the most important word is that word meaningful, there's a cultural disruption going on where people have got a desire to connect a lot more meaningfully with the things that they invest in, the things they do, the things they favour. And that's a huge trend. And out in the middle of that, that's where all these crowdfunding platforms are evolving, because they're harnessing both the technology and the other part. Now, let's have a look at some of the figures now. You know, you go back to 2012, it was 2.7 billion. 2013, 6.1 and 16.2 in 2014. So you can see it's a business that's growing and growing. And you know, as we saw in Sean Moffat's presentation, it's going to be 96 billion in 2025. So there's no doubt about it that this thing is going somewhere. And the good thing from when you look at it from the point of view of Asia is that, look at that circle there. You know, Asia is going to be very much part of this. And, you know, people say, well, it's sort of early days, but also already there's a decent volume of transactions going on there. And if you that top one, long one there is lending, that's money, peer-to-peer lending. That's a huge growth area, but so are these other ones in terms of crowdfunding and royalty-based ones. So all sectors of that are going well. So in summary, it's growing at 300% per year, this whole area. We go there, and also it's going to be 100 billion by the year 2025. Peer-to-peer lending is powering away. Asia's going to be growing at 210%. So what a great place to be to embrace this whole area of crowdfunding. So now let's have a look at innovation in this particular area. We've got people like IBM that are running internal platforms so that if employees think there's something pretty cool, they can put it up on the platform in order to use it within their business. And it's the same with, this was an article on Crowdsourcing Week that from Dan Maram, an Israeli, one of the first people ever to write a book about crowdfunding, about the democratization of philanthropy in this whole area, the civic crowdfunding, microfinance, all that social innovation is being powered to a large degree about that as well. So it's pretty exciting when it covers that part. And then you look at like equity crowdfunding. People look at Crowdcube and think, wow, that's great and it's dynamic and all that. But underpinning that is an innovative scheme called the EIS tax incentive scheme, which means if you invest in Crowdcube and your company is EIS approved, if you lose your money, you get a tax refund for it. So people sort of think, well, I wouldn't mind supporting the startup sector because it's at least I'm not going to lose all my money. So these things are starting to come into the areas. We look at smaller platforms. Because a lot of the time you talk about Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and platforms like that. People talk that, but there are lots of smaller ones. In fact, it was, I remember last year we were talking about real estate platforms, and there was sort of a handful in the US. Now there's 80 platforms there, and so crowdfunding is spread into non-profits, charitable causes, social activities for small business, creative artists, filmmakers. And for science, tech, crowdfunding for startups, all sorts of areas. So it's splintering down. And so we're looking, where are we going with this? That's what's happening. So here's some of them, like Angel Dorm. That's for people, a college fund donation, if you're donating somebody for college. App Splits for app development. Cat and Can is open source development. Carbon Story to neutralize the carbon footprint. Catapult for Indian music. Crowd Suppliers facilitates designers, so they want to handle their pre-orders in some particular way. Exploration Fund and natural resource exploration. Faith Launcher, Christian-inspired products. And of course, I don't need to explain what Get Gay Funded is. Kiva is a microloan website. Mosaic is solar energy deals. I don't even know how to say that. MicroRiser is scientific research. Pave, your career advancement. That's a good one. You can get people to invest in your own career. So if you think you're pretty cool and talented, put yourself up on the platform and people will put money in, and then they get 5% of your salary. But you sort of get the money in advance. Pave is, and then of course Pledge Music, fans for musicians. Power to Give is local economic development. Razoo, lower overheads to charities, like instead of the charity taking 80% of the money that they receive before the people get it, they're on, I think, 2.5% or 2.9%. Realty Mogul Real Estate. Seed Spark is funding for filmmakers. So, and this was a great site, Space Hub in the States. So all these things are happening. You sort of think, well, there's only a few big platforms, but there's lots of wonderful things going on in this space. So let's have a look. Wonder what we're going to be engaging. What are we going to engage in this particular area? It's the millennials. That's the thing. That's what's going to determine all this. When people say, where are things going? It's not going to be my generation that's going to do it. It's going to be these millennials. And so I don't know whether he's a millennial. What do you reckon? You don't reckon he is? Anyway, but he said earlier in the week that the number one change factor in the rise of this rise of the entrepreneurial startup culture. And of course, millennials are very much involved in that. So if you look at them, and there's some of you in there now, always multitasking, constant connection, short attention span, an appetite for collaboration. Very diverse group, lots of broad interests. And what was the last one? And not as brand conscious. You know, they're things that suit crowdfunding beautifully. So we sort of looked at the big picture. We've come down to millennials. Let's have a look at a few campaigns, because that's when the rubber meets the road as to what's going on there. At ASSOB, when somebody rings me up and says they've got this wonderful thing we want to put on your platform, I have these 3 circles in my head, and some of you were here last year would have seen it before: story, team, and followers. That's what I have inside my head when they're talking to me on the phone. And the first one is they've got to have a convincing, compelling, and credible story. You know, and each of those words is valuable because they do mean something important. But in convincing, compelling, and credible. So when they're talking to you, you sort of say, God, yeah, they know what they're talking about. And they says, oh, they've got a track record of doing it. And oh, God, what a great idea. If you get that in there and it's out of 10, then I sort of think, well, okay, this could be a possibility. Then the second one is a balanced, passionate, capable, likeable team. And each one of those words as well, like you want the Steve Wozniak and the Steve Jobs, and there's got to be the passion there, and they've got to be likeable. But that's, you know, that's the thing. So then you look at the story, and you've got your team, and you think, oh, well, they're about 19 out of 20 so far, so you keep listening. Otherwise, you say, look, sorry, no, we can't help you. Because you'd spend your life helping, the rest of your life helping people that sort of haven't really got anything to raise capital, but they will pester you all the time because they believe it's the most wonderful thing ever. And it's, you know, you've got to be selective and curate your opportunities. And then the third one is the lots of suitable people to engage with. Like whatever the person's got, you've got to have something that people like, that they think is cool, that they want to be involved with, they want to be on the path with them, they want to be in the community with them and things like that. So story, team, followers, if somebody rings me up and I'm listening and they get 10 and then they get 10 and they get 10, then I say, come into the office, let's have a look at this, because that's, you know, that's worth gold. And it's a simple way. You know, a lot of people say you've got to have, you know, how many eyeballs and how many this and that. But I find it's a simple way to at least to know whether they're worth talking to is through story, team, followers. And last thing is to you've got to have a platform to put it on. So, you know, whether it's Crowdnetics or Possible or whatever, there's got to be a platform there so that can legitimise and orientate people towards it. So, you know, 10 out of 10, I have had one that once is 30 out of 30, and they said to me, well, do you think we'll raise capital? And I said, I don't usually say, because, you know, once you tell them, yes, you will, and then they don't, then they harass you and that. But I said, I reckon you will, I'm certain. It was that good. But, you know, you don't get those every day. You only be able to get 2 or 3 of those a year, and that's the problem a lot of the time. You know who that is? This is Neil Young. Well, that's more what he looks like now, and that was what he looked like when he was young. But when I was at university, that was you played after the gold rush and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and you know, he was the one that every party you went to, people would be playing that music. Well, anyway, Neil, he's got this belief that Apple and all these other people's the digital music, they reckon that the quality of it is so bad that he's annoyed that he comes out of the studio, he listens to the track, and then it's not the quality that was recorded. So he thought, we've got to have a Pono movement, which is high-quality digital audio. But of course, there weren't any players to play it, so he thought, well, I'll invent one, or I'll get one made, and then I'll get people to buy. And 16,000 people contributed money to $6,000 to get that player. Simple transaction, instant gratification, pay the money, you get the player. Worked out fine. But then Neil thought, well, you know, they're going to be distributed, people are going to want a company to deal with, so he thought that we'll have to raise money, we'll have to issue shares. And so he thought, well, let's do a raise on Crowdfunder for a crowdfunding raise. And that's up a bit, keep scrolling. He raised 7.1 million for a company. So it's not they didn't get the product, they then got the company. They were investing in Neil Young's company. And what's interesting in the statistics in this, that when you look at the crowdfunding raise, there were 16,500 who thought it was a great idea to get a music player, but there's only around 100 people put the money in for the company to invest in the company. And I think it's a really clear message that equity is not instant gratification, it's based on hope. So any of you are running equity platforms or thinking of investing in equity platforms, you're often not going to get anything back for 2 or 3 years. And maybe you won't get anything back, and that's the difficulty. But legislators and regulators around the world are preparing regulation for thousands of people to chuck $100 notes at companies like Neil Young, but it doesn't really work that way. So, there's other platforms in the world, like Circle Up's a good one. They've niched right down. You can read there, connecting investors with consumer brands. If somebody had said to me 3 or 4 years ago, we're going to run a crowdfunding platform for people raising money to put things on supermarket shelves, I would have said, I don't know, it doesn't sound too good to me. But it's been really successful, and they've got General Mills and some good backers behind them. So that was a good move. Anybody see this raise? How smart is that? You see that tap there? That's a beehive. When people get honey out of a beehive, they have to take these things out and they take them into another room. They've got a big suit on and there's bees buzzing around. It was a pretty, difficult task. And what this father and son came up with after 10 years was they put a tap on the bottom and the honey just ran out into the jar. Can you believe that? Eh? So when you look at story, you can't fault that, can you? Story. Could you get a better story? And then the team, they've been working on it for 10 years, and how it actually works is that they make the honeycomb for the bees, and then when the time comes, it just sort of splits and opens a bit like that, and then all the honey drops down. And then they put it back together again, the bees can go back to work. So it was pretty smart. So then in terms of followers, and you think, well, who wants a beehive? Well, 36,000 people do. So Story Team follows. It was pretty cool, that one. And 12 million. And it was from Australia. It wasn't America. So it means that it shows you if you've got a brilliant idea these days, you can get that out into the world. Isn't that a fantastic story? So I thought that was pretty cool, that one. What did Possible do? Anybody know what Possible does? They crowdfund awesome stuff. Isn't that cool? Anybody know what zombies are? Anybody like shooting zombies? They've had a couple of good raises on there, which is about, look at this, the story of the project. Kill zombies. Dare you to live out every gamer's dream. Ever wanted to experience the apocalypse? Kill zombies, hunt bosses, and fight for your survival as you try to save the world. And you think, well, who's going to be interested in that? Well, their first raise, and I'll see up there, that was Rick Chen up there, wasn't it? Oh, there. He's talking later on. The first raise, they only wanted $10,000 and they got $243,000 to build the game. That was great. So lots of people wanted them to build a game about killing zombies. So they were the followers. The team was capable of doing it. It was a good story. So then they had another go recently, and they raised $359,000 for I think it was called Lazarus, which was another part of the game. So, that's another example of people using, of course, they already had the existing base, they had the existing story that last time we did this, we raised $243,000, want to jump on board for our next one, which was very, very good. Or we've got Start Some Good. Isn't that a great thing? Dream big, raise funds, do good. So see, that positions it in your own mind. What do they actually mean in the platform when they say do good? It means it's not about ripping money off people, it's about doing good. So that's the positioning of it. And there's this campaign overview. I'll just go back there for a minute. No, a minute, this way. I'm fighting you. Wait, good. See there, campaign overview. Support our mobile food truck helping asylum seekers across access fresh, healthy food at a price they can afford. We need your help to buy a truck and hit the road. Help us reach 2,000 asylum seekers a month to access healthy food where they are for the price they can afford. And that's for some people, that's a really good story. They like that. And then they had to show that are they capable of actually building the truck, getting it together, driving it out there, delivering the food, all that sort of thing. So that comes into the team part of it. And there's a lot of people that really think that asylum seekers in Australia that haven't got their citizenship and things like that have got a tough road, and they want to help them. So that was the thing. So 150,000 was the goal, and they got 153,000. And you can just see that truck there. You can scroll it up for me, Epi, just a bit. That's good. See, there's the food truck. and serving. That was with an artist impression of what it would look like. So that's just another way in which people are gathering things from the crowd, using that story, using the team, getting the followers together and putting the thing through. And, you know, one of them up there, look, 207 people paid $100 to volunteer on the food truck for a day. Isn't that cool? You know, paying to work. It doesn't happen all that often, but, you know, that's something that they feel like they're really, really contributing. And so I think there's a picture of him up there, wasn't there? There. Tom, he's going to talk later on. So you'll also get the benefit of his experience. So now, I'm going to go one more and scroll up just a little bit. A bit more. Yeah, so, you know, see, well, what about, how does this affect you as individuals sitting there in the audience? Now, just scroll up a bit there, Epi. See, are you going to be a platform operator, or are you going to be a project owner? You know, some of you will run a platform or are running platforms. Somebody else might be just, you know, thinking they're going to get a project, get something cool together to get people to do it. And so, you know, you start with that story, team, and followers, run that through your mind. And three things that are on top of this is like authenticity is becoming really important because of transparency as well, because people can see a mile away if it's not real these days. It's happening more and more. And then the third one there is monetization. People are expecting to pay for value that they receive these days. It wasn't, you know, there wasn't long ago where people expected everything you got from the internet was going to be free, but more and more they're realizing in order to get value that you're going to pay a little bit. Not more than you expect, but pretty much what you do expect. And so when you look at this whole area of you thinking about your own products or your own platform or whatever, I think one of the ideas is just think about when you write it, you create it at that. Think about what we're talking about, those millennials, engaging them. They're always multitasking. They constantly want to be connected, so they want updates. How's the raise going? Who's investing? How much are they investing? Can I be involved? Can I work on the truck? And they're not as brand conscious, so they will buy things that are not mainstream brands. They'll buy things that are like that. So if you're looking at a particular platform, if I look at this whole thing of where crowdfunding is going, what I've noticed over the last few years, things are segmenting down into niche and interest groups, but people within those groups are being connected and becoming more easily found. So as long as you've got something that's like authentic, you can collaborate, it supports innovation, it enthuses a niche, and then you work it, and you work with that group and that community, your raise will work. And a lot of people put things up there, they'll go home, not after a presentation like this, but they might have read somewhere, saw somebody had, like the salad. What was that called now? The one with the salad recipe, wasn't it? The guy raised 50,000. You wouldn't believe how many other people then went home and created a salad raise themselves. You know, and what are they motivated by? They're just hoping that they get 50,000. It's not going to work when you look at this authentic collaboration, supports innovation, enthuses a niche, and you love it, is it? You've got to get something to go up there that actually you are proud of and that you can share with passion and that people will gather and follow and be part of your journey. And, you know, that's where it works. And I think all this is just beginning. You know, I think that we're just at the beginning. And hearing the speakers, I don't normally come to these first 2 days, but what I've learnt from this is that the whole world is moving towards collaboration and like-minded things where people are doing the same things and they're being joined together. And platforms are just facilitating it. People says to, I've had people copy our platform and, am I out of time? Oh, I've had people copy our platform and ring me from America and say, we copied your platform, and so we've had 320 raises on there for companies raised 140 million. So it's, you know, it's a big number. And they say, it doesn't work. I said, what do you mean our one works? I said, what do you mean it doesn't work? He said, we've built it just like yours and it doesn't work. And I say, well, it's not about the platform. They said, what do you mean? I said, well, it's everything around the platform. You know, as we say, story, team, and followers. So you've got to get the issuers or the people posting the job right. Then you've got to handle it and allow them to communicate and all that sort of thing. It's just a different way of doing business. So people that look at it from that point of view, it simply doesn't work. And so when you go to platforms and there's 20 things up there and they haven't raised any money, it's not being done with the right, in the right mindset. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Paul.